course I'm alive. If I wasn't alive, I'd be dead. I wouldn't be able to talk. Of course I'm alive. Okay. You ready? Shaul. Are you ready to go? Let's go. Okay. Yesterday, we essentially began a question. The question really was, could you say Kiddush the entire Shabbos if you missed it on Friday night? And we had a bit of back and forth. We had Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said that, in fact, you can. You can make, if you did not make Kiddush Friday night, you make Kiddush the entire Shabbos. And just to correct those of you who might get confused, we're talking about that, yes, you can make Kiddush on Shabbos morning. The same Kiddush that you would have made Friday night, which is the full blessing. On Shabbos morning today, we do make Kiddush, but we just do it on wine, and we say a blessing on the wine. We don't actually make a blessing on Kiddush, right? On Friday night, we do. According, huh?
Do you have to make another Kiddush after you make your Shabbos day Kiddush?
You're saying if you didn't make it at night, and you made it in the day, it's a brilliant question. You have to know that the very fact that you asked that question is extremely makes me very proud, because it shows that you're thinking like a super Talmudic scholar. Kenai Nahada, you should continue and grow in your Talmudic scholarly. How should I say it? What's the word? Huh? Endeavors. Okay, good. Back to what I was saying. So to answer your question, that would be a good question. We didn't really discuss it in the Gemara, so I cannot give you an answer randomly off the bat, because the Gemara is right now just discussing whether you will say the entire Kiddush blessing in the day if you missed it at night. Okay, remember, you're meant to say the blessing at night, but if you missed it, you can say it during the day. Okay? According to Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, we challenged him twice. We had two separate challenges where we said, excuse me, sir, how could you say your opinion if we have various Tanaic quotes that seem to contradict what you're saying? Right? That's a very, very brief summary of what we discussed yesterday. We had two separate Talmudic Tanaic quotes that seemed to contradict it, and in each time, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak came up with a rebuttal to basically explain why it's not in fact the case, why the truth is that you could, you could make Kiddush all day. Now, the last thing that he said, right? The last thing, you're talking in my class? No, you are talking in my class. Where are I? Oh, so when he made his second rebuttal, he made it by coming up with this new hypothesis that we never had before, and this hypothesis is Chaviva Mitzvah B'Shaita. Chaviva Mitzvah B'Shaita means that a mitzvah is cherished in its proper time, which means there is some significance to doing a mitzvah when it's meant to be done, more than any other time. Yeah, we don't have on YouTube. We do. Okay, he's going to organize it. Okay. Now, the Gemara today is going to deal with this hypothesis. This hypothesis essentially is saying that any situation where you have a choice to do a mitzvah in its time, or you can do it not in its time and accomplish something by not doing it in its time, you should definitely do it in its time, because doing it in its time supersedes any advantages you're going to get from doing it later. Yeah.
You seem to not be saying in its time. You said that time is all the time, but doing it the first opportunity in that time.
No.
We're not going outside the time. We're doing it, are we? Which one is
So
it?
again, it is in its time, which means that yes, it has a time. Yeah, meaning the time for making Kiddush is at night. The time for Kiddush is not during the day. Even though during the day you could make it up, you could have a make-up Kiddush, but it's not in its time. As a matter of fact, we said Kovod, the honor of Shabbat is really more in the day than in the night, even though technically you could do it at night, but it's more in the day than in the night. right? So very often you have a mitzvah that has a particular time when it's meant to happen. But if it didn't happen in said time, you may have a make-up period. We have this a lot, by the way, especially in the temple with the sacrifices. You were meant to bring the Pesach sacrifice, the Passover sacrifice was meant to happen on the 14th of Nisan, the day before Pesach, right? But if you didn't bring it then when could you bring it? The second Pesach, which is a month later. But the fact is that if you do it a month later, you're not doing it the way it's meant to be done. You're doing it the way, there's a make-up period. There's a difference between the main time you're meant to do it and a make-up period. Okay? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, except that
Okay.
now Pesach Sheni is the time to do
Pesach
Pesach Sheni.
Sheni is the time.
Done on Pesach Sheni.
What are you talking about?
Pesach Sheni is its own
Pesach
time.
Sheni was always done on Pesach Sheni because you can't do Pesach Sheni on Pesach Rishon.
And that's what I'm saying, nowadays,
Yeah.
you do Pesach Sheni, it's a separate thing. You do it on a
But the
day
reason,
of Pesach Sheni.
the reason why we do Pesach Sheni today is because we celebrate to commemorate the fact that it's possible to do Pesach Sheni. As a matter of fact, if Mashiach comes and we rebuild the Jerusalem temple, Bezrat Hashem, very soon, yeah.
Somebody said Mashiach.
I said Mashiach. Are you Mashiach? No, he's not. Anyways, what? Anyways, if there was a temple today in Jerusalem, we would be meant to do it on its main day, which meaning on the 14th of Nisan. If a person failed to do it on in its correct time, you have a makeup period where you can do it at a later date. Okay, but that's a makeup period. That's not when you're meant to do it. And essentially, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says that if you have a choice of doing a mitzvah, a commandment, when you're meant to do it, or you could do it during the make-up period, but you will have some type of a gain. You will gain something by doing it in the make-up period. You should actually do it in its right time and forgo the advantage that you have for doing it in the make-up period. That is the hypothesis that is being set forth by Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Okay? Now, today's Gemara will challenge that very hypothesis, right? And see whether that hypothesis holds any weight. Okay, so again, we're taking a break from the actual argument in whether or not you could make Kiddush during the day. Okay? And we're going to take a break to analyze the hypothesis that Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says. All right? And this is how the Gemara introduces that critique of this hypothesis. Do we say a mitzvah is cherished in its time? Do we say such a thing? It says in a Brisa, there's a Brasadic quote from the Tanaic era that says, someone who enters his house Saturday night, should first say the blessing on the wine, and on the fire, and on the incense, and then he should say Havdalah on the cup. However, if he only has one cup and he eats a meal, so in the meal there's a concept of, somebody asked me today, there's a concept that after the meal, when you do grace after meals, you actually do it on a cup, just like when we make Kiddush. We do Kiddush on a cup. You're actually meant to do grace after meals in a quorum of 3 or more people. You're meant to do it while holding a cup of wine, right? That's the way you're supposed to do it. Today, not so many people do it because in the olden days, it was very common that people would have wine at every single meal, right? Today, we got a little cheaper, so we don't drink wine at every meal, or either that or we don't want to get drunk. One of the two, I'm not sure which one it is, but
Cheaper, you saw 3 people with a glass of wine making it. What do you say?
that's actually what you should do.
10 in the morning, full permission?
Full permission. Well, not 3 people, 1 person. Only 1 person drinks the cup of wine.
3 different persimmon.
If there's 3 or more, you're saying you're going to specifically split it up so that more people could get the drink of wine. Well, if you have 10 people, then you have to do it a minyan. You have to do it with 1 person. Yeah, but that's the way you're supposed to do it, by the way. You're supposed to actually do it on a cup of wine when you do the blessing, with the benching, the grace after meals. If there's 3 or more people, you're supposed to do a cup of wine in honor of the blessing, thanking God for giving you all that awesome food. All right, so it says if you are in the middle of a meal, and you only have 1 cup of wine, but you have two mitzvahs that you're meant to do. You have mitzvah number one is Havdalah, to sanctify the ending of Shabbat. That's number one. And number two is you're meant to say Birchat HaMazon, the grace after meals, also holding a cup of wine. There's only one problem, is that you only have one cup of wine. Says the Tanaic quote, if he only has one cup, you should leave that cup till after eating, and you should kind of group them up, chain up all these blessings after the meal, meaning you should make one blessing, you should use one cup of wine to make the blessing, the grace after meals, as well as the Havdalah, you do it on one cup of wine. And in that case, no one argued that a mitzvah is cherished in its time. No one argued such a thing. Right? Now, if you're telling me that a mitzvah is cherished in its time, seemingly, as soon as he comes home from synagogue, he should be making Havdalah. And he should be making Havdalah if he only has one cup of wine. We should say, okay, Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita. He should make the cup of, he should make it on a cup of wine, and then he just won't have a cup of wine for grace after meals.
You can ask a question even more.
Huh?
You can ask even a bigger question. If seemingly this is a rule, you should have to make Abdullah directly when Shabbos is over.
You do have to make Havdalah. That is the rule. You do have to make Havdalah as soon as Shabbos is over. You're not allowed to do anything. That's why you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to drink before Havdalah. Why? Because you're meant to say Havdalah ASAP. As soon as possible after Shabbos ends, you're meant to make Havdalah. Yeah, that's actually the rule.
If you're in the middle of a meal, you can continue.
Huh?
If you're in the middle of a meal, you can continue, as opposed to with Kiddush. If you're in the middle of a meal,
Right.
you're allowed to continue the meal without making Abdullah.
If you started a meal, right, you can make a meal, finish the meal without making Havdalah, right?
As opposed to with Kiddush, where you have to make Kiddush right
Right.
away. So you could say also, if this is a rule, you do mitzvah in its time, mitzvah Abdullah is here now,
So-
make Abdullah.
Very good. So you're adding to the weight of this quote being a proof against the hypothesis set forth by Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Yeah.
So you're saying that you should do Havdalah as soon as possible. If
Yeah.
you're extending Shabbos, how does that work out? You're supposed to do Havdalah as soon as possible.
Right.
But if you extend Shabbos, how does that work?
Well, that's if you didn't take out Shabbos. If you didn't take out Shabbos, then you don't have to make Havdalah.
Ah, okay.
So I'm saying, but yeah, we're talking about a person that's ending. He wants to eat. He wants to do something. By the way, I've seen this. People come home and they check their mail, they check their email, they check their phones. They do all the because a whole Shabbat, how dare they go a whole Shabbat without seeing their phone? A chutzpah that God even dared asking us to close our phones for Shabbat. What kind of thing is this? So they done Shabbat. They're like, listen, you know what? That's so painful to stay without my phone for the whole Shabbat. At least I go. He goes and checks his phone as soon as he gets home. That's a problem. You should make Havdalah first. You should first say the blessing on Havdalah, and then check your phone. And then if you need to check your mail, and then do whatever you need to do. That's the way you're meant to do it. You're meant to do Havdalah right away. Yeah? Is that what you do? Havdalah right away. As soon as you get home, you should make Havdalah. Zil. Anyways, so here, this Tanaic quote seems to challenge the hypothesis of a mitzvah is cherished in its proper time. And if that's the case, it challenges the very validity of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's rebuttal to the challenge. So not only does this challenge his hypothesis, it challenges his halachic ruling from the last page. Because the very fact that it challenges his hypothesis, and his hypothesis was the rebuttal to a challenge to his ruling, so now it challenges the rebuttal, which challenges the ruling. Now Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is stuck between a rock and a hard place. You ever heard that concept? Yeah, it's very Australian. Yeah, it's a rock and a hard place. Leaked into America too. Anyways, Kenainahara. Huh? You heard this in America too? Sheesh. America's learning from the Australians. Yeah, what? You've never heard that?
I've heard it. I think of America, I've lived from Australia.
I think they learned it from Australia, yeah. Because I grew up in America. I never heard rock and a hard place till I went to Australia, and then they thought it was very Australian. Very Australian. Anyways.
I think it might be personality by
Yeah, now they took everybody's guns, and the kangaroos are roaming wild. They have no defense against them. They're boxing the people, you know. You ever see the kangaroo boxing? Yeah. Anyways.
Fought a kangaroo before?
Huh?
You ever fought a kangaroo?
No, he was scared of me. I actually was one time I was in Australia and I was like out. I was in like the forest, and I was with a group and I needed to do what people have to do every once in a while. So I went into the bushes, and I'm about to do what I had to do, and all of a sudden out of the bushes this kangaroo jumps and runs away. And I didn't even realize he was there. But it was scary. It was like this. They're big, man.
Like
They're-
6 feet tall.
She jumps, runs away. Anyways, so we have a challenge to this hypothesis. Let's see how we can deal with this. Yeah. Omar Lay, he says to him, and listen to this, this is a very rare response to hear in the Talmud. He says as follows, meaning Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says back to Ravina, he says, Ano lo chachimo ano. I'm not a wise man. V'lo yichayzo ano, and I am not a visionary. V'lo yichido ano, and I am not quoting a single opinion contrary to others. Meaning, I'm not mentioning a controversial topic where one person says one thing and other people says other. Ela gamarno ano, v'sadarno ano. I am a person that has properly studied and organized my studies, right? And I know that this is in fact the halacha, even though you might have a challenge. V'chein moedim bebeis medrash, bebei midrasha, and this is what in fact they ruled in the house of studies kivasi, just like I told you. Yeah? Meaning, I am backed up by the entire Talmudic Academy that I am just organizing what they concluded. I'm not trying to tell you something that I came up with. I'm trying to tell you what they came up with and what they decided, what they determined was the fact. Since they determined that this was the truth, this was the fact, who am I who are you to challenge it? Which is actually very rare. It's very rare that a Amoraic sage uses a very powerful authoritative. This is total authority. He's arguing from authority. He's not even arguing he's not arguing any point, right? So he says this is what it is.
So why did you say that in the beginning of the statement?
What's that?
Why did you say that in the beginning of the statement? That this base measure says this is the
So
rule.
let's remind you what is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak's ruling that we're dealing with. He says that if you did not make Kiddush on Friday night, you should make Kiddush the entire day. But we have a problem that it seems like, right? It seems like there's an advantage to say it during the day. If you only have one cup, there would be an advantage to say it in the day because you kill two birds with one stone. What does that mean? You actually get the honor of Shabbat, which is better during the day, and you get Kiddush. And he says, no, he says, Chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, you should try to do a mitzvah in its time better than pushing it off. Don't push off a mitzvah if you have. But then we have the problem where this brisa says clearly that we push off of Havdalah, even though there's an option to do Havdalah immediately. There's an option to do a Havdalah immediately and push off and just not say the blessing on the wine for the grace after meals. There's that option.
What is this meal? I don't understand.
What meal?
He's pushing off a meal. He's pushing off saying Havdalah.
Yeah.
Because he only has one course. He's not using it for Havdalah, but he wants to use it at the end of the meal. The meal is Malav Malka.
It could be Milav Malka. Yeah, it could be.
Not Shalosh Shudas. He's trying to get it.
Oh, sure, Charles.
It would be before. No, they
It's
don't
like
do
Abdullah
before.
before Malka.
What?
You can't rewash.
What? Yeah, no, you can't rewash.
It's a
Seemingly, we're talking about a meal that he started on Shabbat. It was a late shalosh shuz that went very late. Yeah, the third meal that went late. Yeah,
Instead of using it for the end of Shalosh Shudas, he's going to use it for
he's
Havdalah.
gonna no. He finished. He comes home or he's home and he's eating the meal. He ate shalosh shuz.
It literally says he
I know it does say he walked in.
walking in, so he's left the meal already.
He left the meal and he came back.
He didn't have-
Yeah.
They were going to bench. He said, I'm not benching now because I want to use the coast for Havdalah.
Yeah.
One coast. So I'm saying after Havdalah.
Yeah.
So it's not even.
It seems like, I mean, how did he,
No,
It's a good question.
this,
yeah.
and then it's like, okay, it's time for Abdullah now. We make
Okay.
Abdullah, and then bench after the
It's
bench.
actually a very good question, by the way. If he walked in, sounds like he's walking in. It's not a meal that he started
Trying
already.
to show you there's a hefsek, because if it wasn't a hefsek, then you could just say, you could just go in the mitzvah of eating.
So the hefsek is
Let's deal. We really should deal with. We really should deal with.
What? Have sex Abdullah. You walked in to make Abdullah.
Tells you what's going on.
There is it Tosfos that actually does not speak about it. The Rashbam does speak about it.
Which Rashbam?
Let's get to the Rashbam a little bit, but it doesn't really answer his question. But it does seem like he's in the middle of the meal, even though it says he walks in. So if it says he walks in, you would think that what do you mean he walks in? Walks in sounds like he's walking into his house and starting a new meal. But there's a problem because you're not allowed to start a new meal before Havdalah.
You have to be saving the wine from the benching for after.
It could be, by the way, let's just say hypothetically, we actually had a previous Gemara that discussed this. It could be hypothetically that he was eating Shalach Shudas, but instead of benching, he left to go to synagogue to do Ma'ariv, and he came back, but he was still in the middle of the meal. It could be that is a possible fix, and that might actually be what it's talking about. But it's good that we had some back and forth over here, right? As people know, we call this the Talmudic ritual. This is not a Talmudic lesson or lecture, but the Talmudic ritual. In a Talmudic ritual, everybody's meant to yell at each other, and I don't know why we only have every once in a while we manage to get everybody to yell at each other. Huh? You're arguing with me. What's that? Yeah, so he's having Shalach Shudas. He goes out to Daven Ma'ariv. He comes back and he's like, I have to bench on Shalach Shudas. I have to do the grace after meals, after the meal that I had before I went to synagogue. And I have Havdalah. And so, okay, so I'm going to do the benching and I'm going to do them all together.
I think I know why you're setting it up like this. Because
Yeah.
they're showing you that there's a hefsek. Without the hefsek, you would have no problem. You'd be in Shalach
Why not?
Shudas, right? Or
Right.
Daven Ma'ariv.
No, but even if, first of all, yes, you would have to
Go
Daven
from
Ma'ariv.
mitzvah to mitzvah, there's no hefsek. Then if
Right.
you can extend it and use the cup only at the end. Because you just keep going. He doesn't have a break between.
You're saying because he daven Ma'ariv, that's because if he didn't daven Ma'ariv, there would be no problem. What you're saying is, what you might be saying is, by the way, true, because what he asked Shaul, we're connecting it to what Shaul said. Shaul said that you're allowed to extend Shabbat, right? So if you're still in the same meal, then you're extending Shabbat. There's no problem to push it off. But the second you actually went to pray Ma'ariv, now Shabbat is over. But Ma'ariv means Shabbat is over. Because when you daven Ma'ariv, you actually meant to say the Havdalah in Atachonin, which makes Shabbos over. So meaning he left to daven Ma'ariv. So it could be, there's a brilliant concepts are coming up.
So
You
wouldn't
know,
you have to? No, never. You have to do that.
I believe it's a problem. Well, there's a problem in general also eating before Ma'ariv. You know, every day, by the way. You're not supposed to eat before Ma'ariv.
If you're
Eat
middle of a
drink
meal, it's
before
fine.
Ma'ariv.
As soon as
Yeah.
So that's my question.
Very good. There's a lot of interesting, intricate aspects of what's going on.
We're gonna change our whole schedule.
Huh? What's that?
We have dinner at 7 and Myron's not till 9:30.
So you good question. The fact is that if you have a set scheduled minyan, then you can eat before Ma'ariv. Meaning, if you have a minyan that's like a regular established minyan that has a regular set schedule, you're allowed to. So because the yeshiva has a set schedule for Ma'ariv, therefore you can eat before Ma'ariv. Otherwise, you're not allowed to.
Yeah, but how could he leave the meal
Yeah.
without benching, just making a hefsek?
So first of all, we had this discussion a few pages ago, and you actually were here, where we actually discussed this. We discussed there was different opinions of it. What do you have to bench if you leave for Ma'ariv? Okar Ragleim. Remember the whole thing, Okar Ragleim? Right. Well, anyways, let's keep to the point because we're going to go all over the place and we'll lose the plot here. Anyway, so Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak takes a very strong. Takes a very strong authoritative argument. However, he does attach to it a bit of reasoning. And he says as follows. Shani lon bein oile yoima la'apuke yoima. There's a difference between the day entering, meaning Shabbat entering, to Shabbat leaving. There's a massive difference. Iyula yoima. When Shabbat begins, kol kama deminon le. any second that we make it earlier, adif is better. Umechavavinon lei, and is more cherished. Because if you are making Kiddush when Shabbos starts, the earlier you start it, the earlier you proclaim your recognition of Shabbat, right? Which is what you should do. Because Shabbat starts, you should proclaim it, you should sanctify Shabbat ASAP. Shabbat came in. However, listen, Apuke Yoma, when the day leaves, when Shabbat ends, Ma'acharinon lei, then it's actually better to push it off as much as possible, as much as you're allowed to, in order that it should not be like a burden to you. You don't want to show Shabbat as a burden. The second Shabbat is over, you're like, boom, Havdalah, yeah. Right? What do you mean? It's like, thank God, I got Shabbat off my back. You should be happy that God gave you Shabbat. And therefore, when it comes to Havdalah, you should try your best to say Havdalah later, not earlier. Now, of course, as I told you, you're not allowed to eat before Havdalah. You're not allowed to do your own needs before Havdalah. That's because if you're doing your own needs, that's a sign that you already are not in Shabbat, right? But if you decide you want to pray extra, you decide you want to learn extra, you want to extend the holiness of Shabbat, the later you make Havdalah, the better. Right? Because you're extending the holiness of Shabbat. It shows you appreciate Shabbat so much that there was in a Hasidic village, there was one time a story where Yom Kippur, right? Some guy, after Yom Kippur, he goes home, he eats, and he was the guy, he was the caretaker of the synagogue, okay? And so he goes home after Yom Kippur. We fasted a whole day, didn't eat. He goes, he eats dinner. And when he eats dinner, he needs to come clean up and organize the synagogue. He comes to the synagogue and he sees that there's somebody there that never went home. He's sitting there praying and praying and praying. And he taps the guy on the shoulder. He says, listen, it's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur's over. Go home and eat. And the guy's like, I don't want Yom Kippur to be over. I don't want it to be over. So he's continuing to pray. That's it. Didn't eat. That's it. Anyways, but that's the reason I'm saying this is because every Shabbat, that's the same thing. If you are going to extend the holiness of Shabbat, that's better. Now, since there is a legitimate reason to push off Havdalah, which is to save it for the cup of wine, etc., if there's a legitimate reason to push off Havdalah, so push it off, because it's not harming. By Shabbat, if you're going to push off the sanctification, the proclamation of Shabbat from the night to the day, you're pushing off your recognition, you're proclaiming your recognition for the holiness of Shabbat, which should be done ASAP, because Shabbat, you want to show how much you appreciate it. But when it comes to Havdalah, it's the exact opposite. If you have a legitimate reason to push it off, you should. And he says, that's why, when it comes to the Kiddush of the night, we say, the earlier you do it, the better. Whereas by Havdalah, we give you this exception. If you only have one cup of wine, you can push it off to the end of the meal, because pushing off Havdalah is not as insulting to Shabbat as pushing off Kiddush. Right?
Yeah, but it doesn't answer the question.
Why doesn't that answer the question? There you
It's
go.
about the cup of wine. It's not about making Havdalah.
Who's the cup of wine? What are you talking about?
The whole thing is seemingly that the mitzvah of Havdalah is on the cup of wine. So you should drink the cup of wine.
Both of the situations are 100% identical. Okay, with the Kiddush, we're saying that you have one cup of wine, you could make Kiddush now and forego the advantage of doing it in the day, which means you'll also be honoring the day, which means you can get two good things with one cup. And by Havdalah, it's the same thing. You could either do a Havdalah by itself or save it for Birchat HaMazon. And if you save it for Birchat HaMazon, you now are doing two things on one cup, which means you're getting two things for one. Right? Shalom Aleichem. And they're both the same thing. In both situations, you have an option to do something right away and then miss an opportunity, or you can do both opportunities simultaneously but later. Right? They're exactly identical. With Kiddush, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says you should rather do it early and forego the advantage, right? But with Havdalah, we have a clear Tanaic quote that says, no, you push it off to get both advantages. And so therefore, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is forced to reconcile why in one case we say take both advantages and push it off, and in the other case we say, no, don't push it off, do it right away. And his explanation is that pushing off Kiddush is disrespectful to Shabbat, but pushing off Havdalah is on the contrary, it's respectable to Shabbat to push off Havdalah, right? Let's give you an example. If you have a friend that comes, right, and he comes to your house, and right when he comes to your house, you completely ignore him, and then a day later, you're like, "Oh, welcome here. Thanks for coming." The guy's like, "Excuse me, like I was here for a day already. Now you're telling me welcome." You're like, "Come on," right? It's disrespectful, right? But what happens if a guy is leaving? So sometimes you say, "Okay, I'll say goodbye to you when you're leaving my house." And another guy will say, no, I'm not saying goodbye to you yet. I'm going to get in the car with you. I'm going to drive you to the airport. I'm going to walk you to your gate. And only when you're right at the end, when my last opportunity possible, I'll say goodbye. It was nice to see you. That's respect. That's on the contrary. That's more respectable. You understand? So when you're welcoming the Shabbat, you should do it right away because you're welcoming Shabbat, the same way you'd welcome your friend, right? And when you're saying goodbye to Shabbat, which is Havdalah saying goodbye to Shabbat, the more you extend it, the better. And that's essentially Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's justification for his ruling. And the Gemara ends by saying, Shma mino, right? The truth is, Shma mino, I believe, is part of the next part of the Gemara. Let me see how I wrote it here on the pages here. I think it might be part of the next one. Where are we?
No, I thought it was in the...
Hey, wait, hold a second. Oh, here we are. No, actually, Shema Mina is part of the next sentence. So 25 is basically completing. In 25, line 25, we basically completed...
Here's a dot of the Gemara.
Huh?
There's a dot of the Gemara.
You put a dot in the Gemara. All right, good. So that's it. Now we finished the discussion. It seems to be concluded. The Gemara seems to be concluding and ruling that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is in fact the true person, and therefore you could make Kiddush. Now whether or not this is final halacha, you can check it up in the Shulchan Aruch. But let me just see over here. Where are we? Yet it actually does seem from the Gemara, generally, it gives a quote, and it seems like this is the halacha. If anybody wants to, should we look it up in halacha itself? What do you think? Should we look it up in halacha? All right, if somebody could find me a Shulchan Aruch Ohr HaChaim Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. Anybody think they could do that? Anybody here could hand it?
What is that?
Ohr HaChaim, and we need to get the Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. You have Ohr HaChaim there. It's probably one of the later ones. It might be Gimel. Yeah, you should be the one to go. You should. It probably is in Gimel. I have to check it, but yeah, let's see. Let's see if we can find it here. But it should be there. What do we see? It says Reish Ayin Aleph. Reish Ayin Aleph.
Giant wizard book.
This is the Grand Wizard book.
No, it actually is.
It's like a Gemara.
No, it's probably.
Extra things.
It's actually in the last one, Bays.
Base?
Sorry.
Okay, base.
Bays.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you made the statement, Rabbi,
Which statement?
that mitzvah b'shaita, chaviva mitzvah b'shaita.
Haviva mitzvah b'shaita, yeah?
So instead of saying it like that, why do you say that Rabbi Yeshiva this says this?
Who says what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Because the whole entire thing was, he said the statement, then we questioned the statement based on the Tanaic disproof from a Braita. Right? That was the first initial
What?
question. We made a statement that...
Hold on. Oh, it's back here. Sorry. Let me find this here. Reish Ayin Aleph. Reish Ayin Aleph. Halacha Ches. I'm going to read it for you from the Shulchan Aruch itself. Right? The code of Jewish law. Im loy kiddush balayla. If a person did not make Kiddush in the evening, bein b'shoigig, bein b'mezid, whether it was on purpose or by accident, yesh lo tashlumin al-mocha kol hayoim, he could still say Kiddush the entire following day. Hagav, Eimer kol ha-Kiddush ha-Laila, he would say the entire Kiddush of Laila. Milvad vayechulu, you would skip vayechulu, which means I guess you would not say vayechulu because that is talking about Friday night, but you would say the rest. All right, let's see if there's anybody that says anything on this. Let's say we have the Mogen Avraham. Yeah, it says because vayechulu we don't say. So again, we don't say Yom HaShishi vayechulu Hashmayim v'aretz v'chol tzvam because vayechulu he completed really is on Friday night. Therefore, we do not say that part. You would basically start by Sabri Vananon. Right? If you did not say Kiddush Friday night, you say Savri Maranom, Baruch Hashem Lekin Mechelam, Boydei Pri Agafen, Baruch Hashem Lekin Mechelam, Asher Kiddushan b'mitzvei tzvaratzabanu, v'shav zikot shkot be'ava v'rotzin chilonu, zikon lemasi v'reish, zichilum yikoi koidesh, zeich eletzias mitzrayim, kivonu v'chartov, yesonu kidashto, mikolo amim, v'shav zikot shkot be'ava v'rotzin chaltonu, Baruch Ato Avaye. So again, if you ever hear somebody saying that during the day, don't say, yeah, you're saying the wrong one. You have to say, oh, by the way, did you say it last night? If you didn't say it last night, you should say that whole Kiddush. That seems to be the final rule right here in the Shulchan Aruch. I don't see anybody arguing, and since none of the commentators seem to argue on the Shulchan Aruch, at least the main commentators, I would assume that is the practical halacha till today. Yeah.
You would say Vayichulu?
No, you do not say Vayichulu.
You just said now at the end, you added on that you would say Vayichulu if you didn't say it the night before.
No, that's not what I said. You missed what I said. No, you do not say Vayichul. You start by Savri Baranon, but you say the whole bracha afterwards. Savri Baranon, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Ato Hashem,
The reason why he's saying that you don't say it.
Oh, the reason is because Vayichulu basically means God completed his work, but God completed his work Friday night.
I understand. So I'm saying, so if somebody's in shul, you don't say Vayichulu if you're not in a group. So
What do you mean? Oh, no, you're talking about Friday night.
You're in shul and you're in Shmona Esrei,
Right.
and you don't, and everybody they start the chassan starts,
Yeah.
and you don't say Vayichulu. Right?
No, you still say vayechulu.
No,
The
you
first
say
paragraph.
I don't know what you why. I don't see how you mixed into something that has nothing to do with
You're
this.
saying
No, I'm saying if you did not say Kiddush, no. The concept of Vayechulu is relevant to Friday night. That's why you say it in the Shmona Esrei, and that's why you say it after Shmona Esrei. Everybody says Vayechulu together. That's why you say it a third time, you actually 3 times. You say it in Shmona Esrei, you say it after Shmona Esrei, and then you say it by Kiddush. Right? Over here, he says that is relevant to Friday night, and since it's relevant to Friday night, we do not say it. Correct. You never say it during the day. If you missed it, you say the other part of Kiddush, but you do not say Vayechulu in the day. That's what it says over here in the Shulchan Aruch. So now you understand, based on the Talmudic argument, as it seems like he came and he said this rule. He was challenged twice. He rebutted the challenge twice, and then he had to rebut it again and again. But we finally seems like his hypothesis stands up to critique, and therefore it seems to be the accepted halacha, as we saw in the Shulchan Aruch. It seems to be what the actual final halacha seems to be.
My question is,
when
you made the statement, Chaviva mitzvahs, Amalei Chaviva mitzvahs b'shaita, right?
Correct.
So when you say Amalei, Rabbi Nachman says, Bar Yitzchak, in the name of this yeshiva, Chaviva mitzvahs b'shaita.
So people don't quote yeshivas. They don't quote yeshivas. You quote individuals. If something came from a particular rabbi, the rabbi's quoted. You don't quote it from a yeshiva. That is actually one of the few exceptions. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are in the Tanaic world. They do it sometimes, and these were academies that very often did take a particular side in an argument as an academy. But over here, it's also more. When an academy takes a side, it's almost like they take a side against somebody else. Here, he's trying to say that this, in the base medrash, this seems to be what everybody holds, meaning there seems to be no one that argues with this. I am basically transferring and passing on a tradition that I was given that I believe is completely, how should I say it, consistent with everything else. Make sense? Good. So, That being said, I think we will end the quote. We'll end today's discussion with this. If anybody has any questions regarding what I'm saying, please feel free to share the questions. Remember, from online, we will only answer questions if it's relevant to our particular discussion, not random questions like, why did I kill JC? I didn't do it.
That was the question. That's all the question.
Yes.
I didn't do
What's
it.
that? Adif means better, like it's better or preferable.
So we made the whole
Yeah.
religion with that, though.
What do you mean? We're not talking about that. You know? Anyways, you'll read the questions. You'll tell me if anybody has any questions. What about this guy? No, Oleg. Oleg sometimes that's a good one. What is this? Isn't the Shulchan Aruch? Look, read that one. The Facebook one.
Here, we can
Yeah.
put it up. We'll show it. Is
Yeah,
the
show it.
Shulchan Aruch downstream from the Gemara?
Absolutely. So that's a good question. The Shulchan Aruch is basically the Gemara. By the way, this might be relevant even to some guys in this class. The Gemara, very often, it could be vague on its conclusions. It doesn't necessarily say clearly what's its conclusions, and there was a lot of rabbinic discussion after the Gemara as to what the final conclusions of the Gemara is. The Gemara actually is the authority. However, how to interpret the authority very often is disputed in later generations. Today, the general code of Jewish law is the Shulchan Aruch, which the Shulchan Aruch really, it was really the Rishonim. There was a Rishonim era. They really kind of put together what they felt the conclusions of the Gemara, but they also disputed, and then the Shulchan Aruch is trying to compile the conclusions of the Rishonim, and even the Shulchan Aruch, there are times where other commentators argue with him, but usually the Shulchan Aruch is like the center of where we determine final Jewish law. You have the Shulchan Aruch and the various commentators on it. However, if you read a Shulchan Aruch and you see that its general commenters are all agreeing, that's usually the final law, because people from a later generation would not necessarily will not necessarily argue with the Shulchan Aruch. From the same generation, or for the same era of the Shulchan Aruch, many people did argue with him, and sometimes we side with those people that argue with him. However, the later, like today's generation, no rabbi today is going to get up and say, listen, I read the Talmud and I'm going to make a conclusion contrary to Shulchan Aruch. That's not going to happen. So yes, the Shulchan Aruch is kind of the next authoritative book that tries to conclude what the final Jewish law is. That's the Shulchan Aruch, actually written right here in the holy city of Tzfas, unless you believe there's actually one opinion that was written in a small city called Biria, which is right outside of Tzfas. There's actually a dispute whether it was written in Tzfas proper, or there's some people that say the Beis Yosef in Tzfas, he was so popular and people were constantly asking him questions, so he went to Biria for a period of time to write the Shulchan Aruch. There's an opinion. There's also an opinion that he actually wrote the Shulchan Aruch here in Tzfas. I hope that answers your question for Oleg. Great question. Yeah, what's the other one?
It's so crazy. I'm
What?
not going to read it.
Huh? Which one?
No, I'm not going to show it.
You're not going to show it. Which one are you talking about? The satanic one. That's fine. They come to a Talmudic ritual and then they wonder why they think it's satanic. If it's satanic, then get the heck out of here. No one needs you. So.
Are there any laws added to the Talmud based on modern day things that happen now that didn't happen back then?
So absolutely, there are many discussions. There are many discussions today of laws that weren't written in Shulchan Aruch at all because of various modern technologies, and rabbis very often have to go all the way back. They have to go all the way back to the Talmud era to try to figure out what the final rule is. I'll give you a few examples today. For example, with artificial, what do you call it? Various different in vitro, and surrogate moms. Like these are very big questions. Also, by the way, euthanasia. Well, of course, you're not allowed to actually actively kill somebody, even if he decides that he's a burden on the world. But what happens? Could you pull a plug on a guy that's dying? These are questions these are very big questions that are not necessarily clear in Shulchan Aruch because they didn't really have the concept. Electricity, is electricity allowed or not allowed? This is a great question as well. These are, is electricity considered fire on Shabbat or isn't it? It's not so clear.
Is there a separate book or
Yeah.
different thing that based on that has more modern things?
There are various rabbis that wrote various books on the matters. However, there's not like a well accepted single book that all rabbis will follow. As a matter of fact, any book that's written by rabbis today on these matters, definitely rabbis will feel the right to argue with them if they have a source. If they have a source, they might feel that they have the authority to argue with those people. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to bring down the whole sandcastle.
Chas v'shalom.
First, this pasuk doesn't make any sense.
Which pasuk?
This sentence. V'ha tanya hanichnas lebeso b'motzei Shabbos. He comes in after
Yeah.
Shabbos to his house.
Yeah.
V'varech al yayin. He makes a blessing on the wine.
Right.
The
No, so
alcohol.
first of all,
And then he makes a blessing on the light.
you're missing the
Yeah, on
flow.
sun,
Hold on a
and
second.
on the sun. And then v'achar kach, and after that, Omar Havdalah al kos.
Right.
And he makes Havdalah.
Right.
So what was the first thing he did? He made a bracha on
No,
it?
it's all part of Havdalah. No, again, he's basically listing the order of Havdalah. He's listing the order that Havdalah is taking place in. Okay.
Saying
Normally, you would come into your house. These are the blessings.
He's gonna do it like that.
No, first he said this is the order that you should do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the way you should do it, right? Then he says if you only have one cup, and that's really.
Single phrase, which means, but it's
No, it's not missing. It's
the
there.
normal way to do something. No, the normal way to do something is you come home after Shabbos.
Yeah.
You make Havdalah
Basically,
by saying the one
Beire
and
Priya
the
Gafen,
four, and then the
Beire Me'ez Besamim, yeah.
By the way, you're not going to do if you don't do it that way.
No. Va'achar kach, continue. Va'achar kach.
Amar Havdalah al kos.
Yeah, and then what's the next line? Ve'im ein lo elokos echad. If he only has one cup. So again, that line is relevant to our conversation. You understand? So the first part of the quote is just telling you if you have wine, if you have enough wine for both, then this is the way you should do it. If you don't have enough wine for both, then that's what you're gonna have to do.
So what is the
Yeah.
relation of this between ein lo-
If he doesn't, if he has no more than one cup,
Right, and what's the rest of it?
right? Continue.
Manich,
Manichan, you leave it,
leave it.
yeah,
Lachar hamazon.
till after eating.
So it
Yeah.
has to be,
You leave it till after food eating.
It has to be
Again, not necessarily. No, because it seems like shal shudus because you wouldn't be able to start a food. You wouldn't be able to start a meal before Havdalah, seemingly. And I think that that's even what the Rashbam says. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, no, he doesn't even say it. No, he doesn't say it.
It has to be.
It seemingly he's not starting a meal before Havdalah, seemingly. Because you're not allowed to eat before Havdalah, so that's what I'm assuming, is it?
It can't be shal.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, we had another question over there, no?
Okay, good question.
Yeah. Oleg, one of our favorite online students over here. Is he a good one? Huh? Huh? It's something I mentioned in a previous class. Yeah, you could show it if you want. Is one of the times where one of the situations where a cow, one of the situations in modern situation where the rabbis had to go back to the Talmud is a situation with surrogacy motherhood, right? Whose child is it? Right? If you take a sperm and an egg and you put it together, and then you put it in a woman that has no connection to the sperm and the egg, is it her child or is it the child of the donors? Right? So that's where they actually found in the Talmud this very, very interesting discussion where if one cow bumped into another cow and the fetus went out of one cow into the other cow, which seems completely impossible, like how on earth would they bump into each other so hard that the fetus would go from one cow into the other cow and then grow in the other cow and then come out? We say it actually belongs to the first cow that initiated the pregnancy. So the rabbis the rabbis show that that's what it is. So that's, I think, what he was talking about, etc. Very good, and that's that. So let's, again, remember that this program is essentially built on you studying this on your own. So take the time after the Gemara class is finished. Once we end right now, we're going to end. Now you're going to have a chance to learn the Gemara inside. For all of you online, we do have we set up a WhatsApp group. And we need to share it with them, the WhatsApp group, so you can join, so you can get notified when we...
We'll have to add it to the comment. I'll have to add it to the
How could they get a hold of us? They need to know how to get a hold of us. Anybody there that wants to join the WhatsApp group, could you put something on it now? I'll give them my email and they can put it
Hold
on.
on, I think I have it.
Oh, do you have the actual, to the chat, to the WhatsApp group? You have the WhatsApp group?
I had a
No?
link in here. You go to links for everything.
No, we don't have it.
Alright.
All right.
We'll put it in the description.
So let me, I'll put my email here if anybody wants to email.
Well, on the video descriptions it'll go up.
What do you mean?
We'll put it in the descriptions of the video.
Yeah, but it's going to be
really
over.
quick.
Let's leave it for now. We'll leave it for now, but yeah, if you want, you could leave a comment if you want to join our WhatsApp group in any of the platforms that you're on, and Bezrat Hashem will get a hold of you and we'll send you the link to our WhatsApp group. That the WhatsApp group essentially will keep you informed that you have the worksheets, etc., in order to follow along with the class and join and benefit just like these other people are in the live class. For now, we have to go. Sei gesund. Have a great day. Love you all, and see you later.